When we hear the word trauma, some obvious things come to mind. Typically, those are things that happen to us, not things we miss out on. So, trauma, if you want to broadly categorize it, would fall into one of those two categories. There's things that happen to us that shouldn't happen, and there's things that don't happen to us that should happen. And when we think of trauma, we, for the most part, think of that first category as being actual trauma. Unfortunately, research shows us that the more lasting impact is the second category, things that should happen that don't happen. And for this reason, so many of the people that I work with who come to me with anxiety and depression, maybe later in life, looking back, would say that they haven't experienced a lot of trauma because they're looking for things that happened that shouldn't have happened. But if we retrain our lens and look for things that should have happened that didn't happen, often the picture becomes clearer. So of course the stereotypical joke of people with emotional issues is a man breaking down in tears and saying, "My mother never loved me." But the reality is, like most stereotypes, they are rooted in fact, although an overgeneralization of those facts. But many of the times that I'm working with people who are struggling with self-esteem or feel like they have no one to lean on, when in fact there's objective evidence to the contrary, this is learned behavior because the people who were supposed to be there for them were not there for them. And what I always try to illustrate and underline over and over is that this isn't about the other person's character necessarily, as it is just about their availability. It doesn't matter if our caregivers were not available because they didn't care, or because they were too inebriated, or because they were working 3 jobs as a single parent. All our brain knows is that it's reaching out and there's nothing to grab onto. And that, when repeated over time, is the formation of what we call complex trauma. So if you're trying to put your current emotional difficulties or those of someone you care about in context, stop looking for things that have happened that shouldn't have happened, if you can't find any, and start looking for things that may have not happened that should have happened, things that were missed out on more than things that were experienced. It might give you some clarity.